I like Aidan O'Brien when he saves them for the autumn.
13 runs and 0 wins.
But it's Point Lonsdale.
50-1 at the moment. I think that's too big a price.
It is the Derby winner, and they are.
You're literally not happy with what I'm saying right now. You're really not. Hello and welcome to the Next Gen Racing YouTube channel for our feature video this week. And Jack and I had a long discussion about what we're going to do at this stage of the season. We're going to review kind of we're about 3/4 of the way in.
Mid-season
We
recap.
are mid-season recap on what we've gone. We're going to go through sort of the best 2-year-olds that we've seen so far, the best 3-year-olds, the performance of the season, a dark horse for the season, and some of our moments or best moments from the year, including our bets of the year. And then after we've done all that, we are going to do a quick sort of anti-post preview of the ledger and try and find who's going to finish second behind Hurricane Lane by the sound of things. I think a lot of people are fancying that horse for the ledger.
But we do have a couple of 50-1 selections.
We do. Big prices that could potentially go in as a nice each-way price. I'm sure there'll be extra places for the ledger with some bookmakers at the time as well. So we will be doing an official preview of that in a couple of weeks, but it'll be a quick anti-post one at the end of this video. So Jack, let's start off with the best 2-year-olds that we've seen this season. It's very easy for us to come out and talk about the Chesham right now and say Point Lonsdale and Reach the Moon. They both come out and been very, very impressive, right? And there's no doubt about it, they're probably the best 2-year-olds we might have seen, especially 2-year-old colts we've seen. But we don't want to sort of bang on about those because a lot of people know about them. We want to kind of have a couple of 2-year-olds who could progress into nice 3-year-olds and still be decent performers or decent shouts in some of the big races next season. I'll kick things off with a colt to follow, and that's the Godolphin horse, an unbeaten horse called Native Trail. He's had 2 starts, and his first start was at Sandown where he looked very, very impressive, and then after that he went to Superlative Stakes, where in the Superlative Stakes he beat a horse called Massacada. Now those who follow the channel will know that Massacada was very bigged up by our man Oisin Murphy, who said that he looks like a star in the making. It might be a horse that's very progressive, Massacada, and he did look like at one stage he was going to get to Native Trail, but Native Trail seemed to just be doing enough at the line. I do think that this horse here, I think a mile might be his distance. I'm not sure whether a step up, we'll have to see how he progresses as a 3-year-old, but it looked like the mile seems the distance this horse is going to need. But I just think he could be quite fascinating. Unbeaten so far, so clearly he's got still a lot to come, I would have thought. Beating a horse like Massacada, I know Massacada did run in that Chesham. We did get a bit of horrible ground during that Chesham, so it wasn't ideal with regards to form. We never know how good Massacada could have been. He could have finished a lot further up in the field. But Native Trail will be a horse to follow, and maybe even a Breeders' Cup I could potentially see for this horse as a runner. Maybe in one of the juvenile races. But we'll wait and see. I have got another one which will be the filly, but I'll go to you, Jack, for your 2-year-old.
Yeah, I'll start with the colt as well. Now, you're talking about the Chesham. I was tempted to talk about New Science, who of course beat Reach for the Moon on debut and won quite nicely at Ascot. I was lucky enough to be there, and he just looked like he'd filled out his frame a lot more than everything else. Of course, Angel Bleu went on to win a rather lacklustre vintage, it's fair to say, at Goodwood next time out. But no, it's going to be... I like Aidan O'Brien when he saves them for the autumn. He either does it because they need softer ground or because he's thinking about their 3-year-old campaign and he doesn't want to waste them as a 2-year-old. And Glownthorne kind of fits that category. Of course, beat Castle Star on his sole start, and Castle Star then went on to win Group 2 honours as one of the top sprinters in Ireland. I do think he's going to win a Group 1 either this year or next year. I think he's a top class sprinter. He hasn't really been getting too much luck in running. But anyway, Glownthorne is bred to go further than Castle Star. It was over 6 furlongs, which is Castle Star's probably optimum trip for the moment anyway. But he's been kept for an autumn campaign. I don't really know where he's going to go just at the moment, but I think he could be a top class miler next year. He's bred to go a mile, and I mean, if he does keep him for the autumn campaign, hopefully, I think Glownthorne could be pretty good.
There we go, another one stick in your notebooks. And the filly that I had written down too, I was Inspiral. Now, the reason I want to mention Inspiral is an obvious selection. She's current favourite for the 1,000 guineas, but I put this horse up on this channel at 33-1 after her debut run, and she did look very impressive that day. And since then, has beaten Wild Beauty at Sandown. Now, Wild Beauty doesn't actually look like too bad a horse for Godolphin. And Godolphin have got a really nice crop of 2-year-olds by the looks of things. Quite exciting for them, and obviously they've got decent 3-year-olds as well. But I think she's going to end up going to the Fillies Mile next. She's currently around 3-172 favourite for the Fillies Mile, but I think that 33-1 that I've got could look quite nice if she does go and win that Fillies Mile. I think we could be looking at 6s, but she has looked very impressive for the Gosling Dettori team in the Cheveley Park colours. Jack, do you have a filly or an unraced horse that we could potentially be looking at?
I've actually got one of each, but I'm going to go for the race tours first of all. And she's kind of become somewhat of a forgotten filly, and that's Tenebrism. Now, I don't know if you remember back in March when she burst onto the scene. Of course, I think it was Caravaggio's first runner for Aidan O'Brien, and she's absolutely bolted up. I mean, she was as green as anything, came around the outside over 5 furlongs, of course, in testing conditions at Naas, and absolutely flew home. I mean, Shamie Heffernan could hardly pull her up at the line. Now, Aidan says she's got a lot of speed like Caravaggio, but of course she's out of Immortal Verse, who won both the Coronation Stakes and the Moulin on testing ground. So it'd be interesting to see if they are going to try and step her up to a mile. Again, saving her from autumn campaign, because I think she will not need but appreciate softer conditions more. And I do think she could be, again, a top class. Hopefully she'll stay a mile. I'm not too sure because she does look like quite a speedy filly. But nonetheless, I think Tenebrism is a very exciting filly going forward. And one I'm going to say he was unraced thus far, and that's Paris Lights, the Jesse Harrington trained colt. Now, he's the unraced full brother to St Mark's Basilica. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I think he was a few €100,000 as a yearling from the vendor, and I mean, he's got an entry in the Dewhurst, so it's interesting to see where he goes. I'll definitely be keeping a keen eye on Paris Lights.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I remember that Aidan O'Brien horse, the filly you mentioned there. I think she went favourite for a race at Royal Ascot.
She did, yeah.
Really
Queen
short.
Mary.
Yeah, the Queen Mary got cut really short at the time.
Yeah, she was 3-1.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. But yeah, it was a really nice performance. So hopefully, potentially stepping up to a mile next season. We'll have to wait and see. So some really interesting 2-year-olds to keep your eye out for. Hopefully some decent horse going into next season. We can see some stars as 3-year-olds come next year. And talking about 3-year-olds, let's go on to the 3-year-olds of this season. And, you know, we can look at some of the main stars here. Snowfall, Dyer, Hurricane Lane, St Mark's Basilica. And they're just some of the names that we could mention here. There have been some really outstanding performers. I mean, the obvious one, I know that you're probably going to go on, is Dyer, who won the Derby and then went on to win the King George, and certainly has probably got the best form in the book and the most impressive CV to his name, maybe. St Mark's, I'm looking forward to seeing him hopefully in the Irish Champion Stakes. I'm not sure if we want to see this horse stepped up in trip. I'd like to see this horse go Irish Champion Stakes and then go on to the Arc. I know that Dave mentioned on the finishing line. Sorry, no, the English Champion Stakes. Sorry.
Goodness me.
No, but I know, sorry, Dave mentioned last night saying there should be a selection for the Arc. I'm just not quite sure. I've got no doubt that he has the ability to win an Arc, but I'm just not sure 1.5 miles is his optimum trip. I think he's a mile or a mile and a quarter horse, personally. What about you?
Yeah, same. I mean, you look at Mishreff destroying them in the Juddmonte. What would St Mark's Basilica possibly have done with that weight allowance? I think Aidan doesn't really need to step him up to 1.5 miles when he's got the likes of Snowfall.
That's what I mean.
Like, for me, he has to stay at 1.25 miles and hopefully dominate the division there.
I think with the Arc, you need someone who can clearly get a mile forward, if not further, in a race like
Especially
that.
with the ground.
That's what I mean, yeah. So I'm just not sure. I'd like to see this horse go from the Irish Champion Stakes maybe onto Champions Day at Ascot. We'll have to wait and see. But the 3-year-old I'm going to put up, and I think this horse is gets a fair bit of credit, but not maybe the credit she deserves, and that will be Alcohol Free. And I have to give her a mention. I mean, she ran creditably in the 1,000 guineas. We know that she travelled the strongest in the race. We've talked about it before, but when we spoke to Joshie and Andrew, said that the horse was sick after the race, and you know, I then sort of saw that performance, said she'd go on to win the Coronation Stakes. She did that on in really testing conditions, but that seems to be what she likes. But she's then gone to win a Sussex as well, right, with the weight allowance. You're literally not happy with what I'm saying right now. You're really not. But I just think that she has looked really, really impressive and can be said to be ground versatile, because in the Falmouth she finished third. Yeah, third. Behind Snow Lantern and Mother Earth. And, you know, you can talk about your Primo Baccio in behind. But the form at Falmouth, even from the weekend that we've just had, Lavender's Blues even come out and won at a big price in a Group 2. I just think that this horse, she's a real star. And if she gets her ground, especially if it's on the softer side, with the fillies and 3-year-old allowance, I really don't rule her out in the QE2. I really don't rule her out. I think she's got an amazing chance in that. And 10-1 is an insulting price if she can get there. So, yeah, Alcohol Free, I think. At the moment, I wouldn't say the best 3-year-old, but definitely a 3-year-old who is up there with the top but doesn't get talked about enough.
Adayar, St Mark's Basilica, Snowfall, Hurricane Lane, and you're talking about Alcohol Free.
Group 1 winners. I'm talking about a Group 1 winner.
If you're
talking about Group 1 winners, that's what I'm doing. And Group 1 places.
No, Sam. If you're talking about the top echelon of the 3-year-olds, Alcohol Free is nowhere near that top echelon. I've just mentioned the top 4, and I mean, I thought the conversation would be Hurricane Lane or Adayar, St Mark's Basilica or Adayar, but alcohol free being thrown into the equation. Sam, come on.
Can I just quickly ask if she does go and win a QE2, will you take back that statement?
No, absolutely
What
not.
if she wins a QE2
She's
as
not-
well as a Sussex Stakes, a Coronation Stakes, and a fair run in a 1,000 guineas? You're not going to give me any credit at all to say that she isn't up as one of the best fillies that we've seen this season.
Goshen's got more chance of winning the QE2. Come on, honestly. But no, for me, I think it was kind of a toss-up between St Mark's Basilica and Adayar, and I kind of want to see St Mark's Basilica do it again. I know he was very impressive in the Eclipse, but they did go at a cruel early doors, and I'm going to contradict myself here because I think I think he's an absolute world beater. I was very sceptical. I mean, he was very impressive at Nottingham as a 2-year-old, won by 9 lengths. Something wasn't right at Sandown. Maybe he wanted further, and then Lingfield, he just didn't seem to want to win, and of course he very much did at Epsom. And I kind of wanted to see him, of course we were both with love in the King George, we wanted to see him do it again, but he was absolutely magnificent, wasn't he? I mean, from a time perspective, there was only 2 times, of course the ground was very quick, there's no getting away from the ground was very quick that day, so it may have flattered him a touch, but there's only 2 times over a mile and a half quicker since 2007, and that's Poet's Word in the 2008 King George and Novelist in the 2013 King George. So I mean, 2018 Poet's Word was. But I mean, he's done it on every type of ground. I mean, he's done it over a mile and a half. I do think he's going to win the Arc at the moment, because he's very versatile. Let's not forget that the Derby ground was very testing. The King George ground was rattling. He travelled like a dream. He was as keen as anything early doors as well. So, I mean, he got into a nice rhythm later on, but not everything went right for him. He was still very keen. What's going to happen if he settles, if he's going to do that to a field where not everything goes right? Who knows? But what I do know is he's better than alcohol-free.
Okay. All I'm saying is I've got plenty of stick when I've been going on about this horse for the Coronation Stakes, and I'll bite you twice in the same year, Jack, with this. But alcohol-free is going to go on and win a QE2. I think that she's going to run massive in that race. I think 10-1.
I'm not denying she won't run massive, but
insulting price in that ground. I just think the Sussex Stakes winner, Coronation Stakes winner, potentially, if fully fit, would have won a 1,000 guineas. I think she's an absolute superstar. I think the world of her. I really do. But we'll have to wait and see. But there are plenty of decent 3-year-old performers this season, and we are going to go on now to the performance of the season.
This was hard. And this was tough.
Really?
This was tough.
Hard.
This was tough.
The best visually impressive performance we've seen.
No. The best performance, not the best visually impressive.
Well, okay.
The best performance as a whole.
Well, I'm just going to go in with Snowfall in the Oaks.
Yep.
You happy with this?
Keep going.
But Snowfall in the Oaks, right? Everyone can go back and watch that run. I know we were on horrendous conditions that day, but she did it in some style. Now, I know loads of people came out and said it was Frankel-esque in the way that she won that classic. But the way she won the classic was stretch clear, and you shouldn't be doing that in a Group 1 like that. That was just ridiculous. But I think it was one of the best visual performances I've seen in a Group 1 for a long time. I know she might not have beaten a hell of a lot, but I just think it was just sensational. And in my opinion, if I had to go back and watch race again and go, blimey, that's outrageous. That is the race that I'd look to. And don't get me wrong, I'm not actually I like Snowfall, but it's not a horse that I've fallen in love with as of yet. I'd like to see her go on and win an Arc, and then maybe I'll give her a bit more credit. But she has looked so good, and that would be the best performance I've seen this year. Not my favourite moment, but the best performance I've seen this year.
Yeah, that is completely.
It's the obvious one, but it really is easy to say.
For me, I was and with that. You've also got the King George with Dale. Yeah. But for me, my performance of the season was actually Palace Pier in the Mauer. I think everything was stacked against him. He wasn't on his favoured ground. He was up against the 3-year-old in Poetic Flair, who had it all his own way. He had the conditions, he had the weight in his favour. And I think Palace Pier really did show his class. I mean, Poetic Flair was coming back at him and he wasn't getting past. I think Palace Pier really cemented himself as the top miler there and then, because as I say, I mean, it was a David Goliath kind of situation, but everything was favoured in Poetic Flair's situation. And I mean, for Palace Pier to almost do it as he did, and with such grit and determination, I think for me that was the best performance of the season.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, no, I completely agree. That would have been up there as one of the top 3, especially you mentioned Dayar as well in the King George. That was visually so impressive. Do let us know down in the comments as well, like your best 2-year-old that you've seen, best 3-year-old performance. comments, whatever you want to put down, let us know, and we'll have a look through some of them. But we go on now to the dark horse for the season, or a horse that might not have been performing as well as we thought they may win towards the back end of the season.
AKA the Cliff Horse.
Get ready,
Cliff Horse.
Get ready for this. And I said this to you on Saturday after we watched the race, and it's going to be Escobar, right, as a handicap horse to follow for the end of the season. Now, Jack and I were there on Saturday, and we saw the horse that wins, Aratus, wasn't it, that won on Saturday, who David Egan said afterwards this is a listed or group horse in a handicap, and we knew that. I mean, the horse had 3 wins to name before the race, prior to going into it, and then won fairly nicely on Saturday, but Escobar was absolutely flying home. Now, that race was over 7 furlongs, and Escobar, it showed that a mile is where he needs to be. I think this horse is majorly set up for a decent autumn run in the Balmoral at the end of the season. Now, he won the Balmoral in 2019 off a weight of 105. He's rated 104 at the moment. The updates on the ratings haven't come out as of yet, but I would have thought he'd be similarly rated to that, maybe even stick around the 104 mark. I wouldn't have sort of raised him. But last year he ran the QE2, which I think was a major mistake. There's no way he's up to Group 1 company, don't get me wrong. I think that was a silly decision. I think he came second last in that race back then. But I do think that he ran a really decent race, and he is ground versatile. That was on good to firm ground, he's running well, but he won the Balmoral on heavy ground. So a ground versatile horse, but I just think he's going to come into his own. He's had 13 runs and 0 wins this season. So I'm putting up a horse who I do think will run a massive race. The Balmoral betting isn't out yet, but I'd like to see him go up at 18, 20 to 1. I think he might be a decent each way crack for that race, and I would probably be backing him on the day. I'd regret it if I didn't. So Escobar for me will be a horse to follow towards the back end of the season. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I was so tempted to say Prima Baccio. I really was, but unfortunately she just didn't show anything that I'd wanted to see from her back over 7 in the City of York, up against the Colts for the first time in a while. So that was very disappointing, it's fair to say. But my other Cliff Horse filly, who I do think has a big race in her again after watching her at the weekend, that's Vadream. Vadream, of course, now was 3rd in the Fred Darling. That Fred Darling's worked out a dream. You've got Prima Baccio there, alcohol free, of course, winning it. Was 6th in the 1,000 Guineas, didn't stay a mile. Was then dropped back to 7 in the Jersey on horrible ground. Finished 3rd in that behind Creative Force. That's obviously quite a nice bit of form. Then finished 4th in a group, and then now has just finished 4th in a Group 3 over in France at the weekend over 6 furlongs. Now she's very versatile, whether she runs over 7 or 6. She's still left in the Sprint Cup this weekend, which I'd be very intrigued to see if she does go there. Of course, she'll get the weight, and she's a hold-up horse, so if they do go up a little bit fast up top, Jamie Spencer may be able to kind of weave his way through. I mean, she was luckless in France this weekend. She does need a bit of luck in running, but I mean, it will come, and hopefully she'll get a win somehow. She hasn't won this season. She bumped into Light Refrain as well over 6 when Light Refrain was running well, who hasn't really gone on to anything since. But I mean, if she can find a gap, I know she's going to land a big pot this year. She's 66 to 1 at the moment for the Sprint Cup in a race where you're probably looking to fill the places other than Starman. Of course, we'll be previewing that this weekend, so when the declarations are out, hopefully. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see where she goes. I think she's going to land a big pot this year. Will it be over 6? Will it be over 7? I think the drop back to 6 may have done the trick for her, so hopefully she'll be able to land one this season.
There we go. Yeah, the Dream, a horse that seems to be made for Jamie Spencer, that horse to be held up, and he's got to get it what right one day with that horse. I'm sure he's going to be able to cut through the pack like Jamie Spencer likes to, and eventually get a win on the board for the Dream. So the Dream for Jack is a horse to follow towards the back end of the season. Escobar for myself, hopefully get a big win in the Balmoral. Now, this isn't our performance of the year because we've obviously done that. This is our moment of the year, and maybe a moment that might have brought a tear to our eye, or it felt special. And it's only just recently happened, but it was so special. It was such a good race against Spanish Mission, but Stradivarius winning back at York, that was just so good. It was such a good race where Spanish Mission got his head in front, and then Stradivarius battled back on the line. And we like to see Stradivarius. What he does is shows that turn foot, bolts clear, and then starts to ease towards the line. We don't get that anymore. Frankie said that he just about did enough, but yeah, that brought a massive tear to my eye. And it'll be great to see Stradivarius. There's every chance he's going to run in the Lonsdale Cup. Is that what will be next at Doncaster? I think that'll be the next race. Yeah. So he'll go there, and then potentially he'll run on Champions Day. I wouldn't fancy him on Champions Day, not in the soft conditions, unfortunately. You might have given him a chance a few years back on softer grounds, but I just think as an older horse now, I just don't think they'd be up for that. I think Shan's going to go and win
just
that.
Quickly, does he stay in training next year? What would you do? You're Bjorn Nelson
Okay.
and John Gosden.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I really want to see this horse just go to stud now, and I'm so glad they're going to say they're going to cover flat mares, so we just get the chance with Stradivarius to do that before going to the jumps mares. But think he'll have to win at Doncaster really well. He'll have to do it convincingly. I mean, I don't think his opposition is that great. I don't see Spanish Mission as a great long distance, Group 1 performer. I think Trushan might even be the best 2-mile horse in training at the moment, and it's not a great thing to say, but I think Trushan's going to go and win the long distance cup. You just got to get the ground right with that horse. Unfortunately, it's not a good ground horse, but it's fascinating.
As long as Subjectivist's career's up in the air,
Yeah.
I think you kind of have to keep him there.
But again, with a horse with Subjectivist, hopefully he does come back. But horses come back from an injury like that, it's never easy, and you'd have to see a first run. Sometimes they never come back the same. So it's a massive shame. But I don't know. I just think maybe it's time to send him stud. Let him run on Champions Day. Maybe runs into a place, second or third behind Trushan, and retire him and parade him in front of that.
He needs one
It'll
last
be in front of the stands at Ascot, where he's performed so well in the Gold Cup over the year at Royal Ascot, and we can see him parade in front of such a packed out stand on Champions Day. But yeah, let us know in the comments with regards to that as well, what you think of Stradivarius, where we see another season with this horse. What would you do?
I mean, again, you'd have to see what he does at Doncaster and then go from there. But I think he's beaten a Spanish Mission when Spanish Mission's at the top of his game. It's not a very strong staying division, but
No, it really isn't.
I'd be inclined to keep him in training, especially if they say the motivation and the enthusiasm is still there. And clearly there's still plenty of ability. Not the ability of old. I say the ability is probably about 60-70%, but it's still good enough to win big pots.
Okay. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be fascinating to see, and hopefully he does show his best towards the back end of this season. For you, then, the moment of the year?
Yeah, I'd agree.
You'd agree? You're with me on it.
Was, but I mean, I'll put another one up as well. Just Space Blues winning the City of York was a big one for me.
Yeah.
Of course, I was banging my head against the wall, questioning myself, was he good enough after that Lennox? Because we were both so keen on him for the Lennox, and of course, when he gets to this age, you're thinking, does he still retain the ability of old? But it was so refreshing to see he does still retain the ability, and hopefully he'll be able to land another big pot in the near future.
Yeah, hopefully so. The best 7 furlong horse in training. Maybe Toro Strikes
Oof.
coming.
Tell you what, that's high up there as well. Seeing Toro Strike vindicate what I've been screaming about him for the last 3 months was extremely satisfying indeed.
Right, and I'm going to go on to the selection or bet of the year, which we probably discussed a lot of this, because we did say the other day, we're not making an excuse, but if Goodwood did come up for Glorious Goodwood, if it did come up good or good to firm, we've got a feeling Jack and I may have cleared up at that meeting. Dancing King in the 3-year-old handicap. Dancing King went and won this weekend.
Always next year.
Toro Strike.
Always
Yeah,
next year.
there is. Unfortunately, Dancing King, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see with Dancing King. I don't think he's as good as the likes of Sir Ron Priestley and Subjectivist. But, he got his win on the board in a Group 3 at the weekend. But the bet of the year, it's obvious. We've talked about it already, talked about the horse already, but has to be alcohol free in the Coronation for me. The selection, I picked the horse as soon as the Guineas was over. I just went alcohol free or win the Coronation. It was literally about an hour after the race I called that. And yeah, when she won that, I was out. I think it was an England game that night, but I was out there, and I definitely wasn't alcohol free that night, I don't think. But yeah, that was a really sensational performance from alcohol free, and probably one of my selection of the year, probably the loudest I've cheered a horse home this season. So alcohol free would be my selection of the year. What about yourself, Jack?
Toro Strike was a big one, albeit recently. That was more
Yeah.
relief than anything else. I messaged you after, just kind of, I needed that for my sanity more than anything else. But I couldn't split the two, if I'm being honest. The first one would have to be Prima Baccio at York. After her run in the Fred Darling, I was just amazed that she went off 14-1. So to see her travel and then absolutely fly clear with Andrea Axini on board was extremely satisfying. I mean, finishing 3 lengths ahead of Creative Flair at 14-1, I was quite happy with that. And of course, Indie Angel in the Duke of Cambridge back at Royal Ascot.
Oh yeah, that was a big price, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think she was 22-1 on the day, but again, it was one of those. She finally showed the ability that I thought she did have, and I was banging my head against the wall. I put her up twice before that, and I've been screaming to you, this filly does have ability. She really does have ability. So to see Frankie get her travelling like she did down the near side and win on the Golden Highway as it was, I mean, she hasn't really done too much since. But I mean, that was also extremely satisfying.
There we go. Yeah, a few decent selections that you've had this year, and hopefully we can find a few more winners towards the back end of the season, especially moving into the jump season. Don't worry, Jack and I are heavily prepared to find winners during that as well. So hopefully we'll be able to pick out some decent prices on this channel in the next coming months. So that is some of our big moments from the season so far, and we are going to move on to the final classic of the year. We're 2 weeks away from it now, or just under 2 weeks away. And it's the St Leger on Saturday the 11th of September. Your betting looks like this currently. Hurricane Lane is your best price 10 to 11 favourite. Ottoman Emperor 6 to 1. Mojo Star 8. Wordsworth is 10s. In Interpretation is 16s. Sir Lucan is 16s. The Mediterranean 18s and 20 to 1, and bigger the rest. Now Hurricane Lane has looked just so good, and I can see why a lot of people think this is one of the banks of the year. Won out in France, over the last month or so, really well. Won the Dante and finished third in the English Derby. We know how the form of that's worked out fairly well. So the one thing we don't know about him is, does he stay the extra 2 furlongs? But looking at his runs, we're pretty confident that he's easily going to do so. But what we've got to try and do, Jack, is find something at a bigger price that might be able to go in. I mean, we look at some of the Aidan O'Brien runners, the likes of Mediterranean, who kept on well in the Great Voltager after being headed by Your Beer went and won that race, but somehow the Mediterranean managed to keep second in that race, stayed on fairly well. And Sir Lucan I also found fascinating in this race. I don't know the full story with Sir Lucan at the moment in what's going on, because it can't be long if they are targeting the Melbourne Cup, or the horse has been sold and running in that horse has got to go out there fairly soon for the campaigns out there, and maybe running a Group 1 out there. But Sir Lucan is fascinating, because they definitely think this horse stays, because still actually holds an entry in the Long Distance Cup on Champions Day over 2 miles. So I thought he didn't run too bad in the Great Vulture, but I wouldn't be fancying him for a race like this anyway. So the horse I'm going to put up, it's 50 to 1, and it's the horse you fancied at a big price for the Epsom Oaks, and it's Savour Forest. Each way I've put this horse up. She'll be getting £3 fillies allowance on the day. She ran 4th in the Epsom Oaks, where she did actually stay on really well. Since then, she's come out and won fairly nicely, actually, beating a horse who was in a photo finish with Dancing King a couple of weeks back, and that was Yes Yes, and I think she beat Yes Yes by about 5 lengths that day. Now, I think good ground is definitely key to this horse, but in all of her races she's kept on really nicely and hit the line hard. I think 51, I'm not sure the ledger's going to come up. We're getting to the stage of the year now where the weather is slowly starting to turn, which is a shame. But if this horse can get some good ground, I think that she's going to run a massive race. She's out of a Galileo mare, so I would have thought that, staying in mile 6 will be no problem. She'll get that fillies allowance, and maybe on the day 50 to 1 on good ground would seem like a big price. But yeah, I'm going to stick that horse up. I know you fancy her for the Epsom Oaks.
Yeah, no, to be fair, I don't think that's the worst pick in the world. I think she can definitely get into a place. She seems to just plod on or plug on.
She does,
She goes past beaten horses like there's no tomorrow. So let's step up to a mile 6, hopefully.
We'll see.
I've got a couple, and they're both from the same race at Leopardstown. It was the listed race which Interpretation won, beating Fernando Vici. Now, they're both the ones I'm going to pick up. Fernando Vici, for the reason that he's over double the price of Interpretation. Now, Interpretation is best price 20 to 1 at the moment, and he kind of has a similar profile to Galileo Chrome last year, not from a breeding point of view, but from a target point of view. He only had the one run last year, was 5th at the Curragh, I think it was, over a mile and a furlong on heavy ground. And as this year, won over a mile 2, a mile 5, and then a mile 6 when going off Even's favourite. Now, Ryan Moore was on board that day, and he was pretty workmanlike, but of course he's very unexposed with just 4 runs under his belt, like Galileo Chrome was with 5, I think, at the time. So it would be interesting to see how good he really is. I was kind of a bit sceptical if he was going to stay a mile and 6, because it looked like a mile and a half would probably be to the maximum of his capacities by Galileo, which is always handy. But I mean, I do think he's an okay each way price. I mean, if you look at the Mediterranean, who's a few points shorter than him, Ottoman Emperor I'm not too sure about as well. Sir Lucan, who knows what's going on with him at the moment. I think 20 to 1 is just a little bit too big a price to try and snatch second, especially as you've got the likes of Youth Spirit there. It's just because he's gone a different route to the Voltager. I think he's probably a little bit too overpriced. And Fernando Vici is a lot more exposed, it's fair to say. He's had a lot more runs under his belt, but of course he's got the same connections, the same owners as Galileo Chrome, and he's with Joseph's brother, Donica. And I mean, he was second in that race behind Interpretation, and he was staying on at the line, and he's by Australia. like Galileo Chrome was. So he's 50 to 1 at the moment. I think that's too big a price. Again, we'll be getting 4 places on the day. Even if it's 3 places, I think he could definitely snatch a place. He seems to be staying on at the moment. He's definitely going to stay a mile 6. His dam's related to a mile 6 winner out in the US. So I do think Fernando Vici and Interpretation both look a little bit touched over the price at the moment.
Yeah, I think over the last few weeks, Interpretations had a lot of money come for that horse.
Yeah.
I think there was a bit of a gamble on this horse. So it's going to be fascinating to see. But like I say, Jack and I are going to be previewing the Ledger in a couple of weeks' time. We'll probably go for a lot of the runners and also talk about Hurricane Lane's chances in a bit of further depth. So like I say, do like the video if you have enjoyed today's video. We've enjoyed having a chat about our favourite moments of the season. Hope you guys have as well. Let us know down in the comments who your favourite performers have been this season. We're going to be back with you guys on Thursday with our preview of the Haydock Sprint Cup. We're going to try and see if Starman's going to get beaten, but I'm not 100%
And the Mulan.
sure. We have got the Mulan, on Sunday, where we'll hopefully see Baid out, who's very, very exciting. So we're looking forward to previewing some of the racing both in England and in France this weekend. But like I say, do subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you on Thursday. Thanks for watching.